Hi, I'm Nancy. Welcome to Mindful Yoga. Today our focus is on the deep front line that runs from the arches up through inner thighs, pelvic floor, up through diaphragm, and into the throat, in the front of the spine. So this balanced place where we can be very steady and stable. Jane Hirschfield's poem, A Hand, also brings our attention to the hands a little bit this morning. Join me in a comfortable seat, perhaps with crisscrossed legs, or maybe you're in a chair for this part. However is comfortable for you, and where your deep front line can be balanced and rising up. In this position, up from the sits bones, up through the throat. Arriving now on the mat, relaxing down a bit through shoulders, heart, and belly, connecting with the earth.
Recording.
Make sure everybody is muted. Breathing through the central channel, the Shushumna, as it is called in Ayurvedic yoga philosophy, that runs up the front of the spine. Allowing ourselves to be steady in the pose, to be steady in the mind. Letting the busyness of the mind just sift down into the body, into the belly's gut brain. Four or five more breaths here, just to bring quiet to the body and allow the mind and body to connect. If you're sitting in a crisscross leg position, that is called Sukhasana in yoga, and Sukha is often translated as ease. But what it really means is a wheel that is so well built and so well balanced that the ride on the chariot is just very smooth and perfect. So we're trying to build and balance our bodies into that well-built wheel that gives us a smooth ride. Imagine the lifting up from the pelvic floor through the psoas muscle that connects from the top part of the thigh bone, the femur, up through the lower spine, up into diaphragm, the inner muscles of the ribs, up through the myofascial tissue of the chest and into the neck, lifting up through the crown, long through the navel, long through the heart. And letting one arm reach up, keep that extension through the whole body as the fingers reach up and open over. Pausing a moment. Both ends of the movement as you reach up, a pause, establishing that deep front line, and then taking the challenge of opening the lateral side of the body. Moving to feel, moving to awaken the body. One more time on each side. Lifting up in the center and over. Bring one hand across to the opposite thigh, the other one comes back behind as a kickstand. Come forward on the sits bones just a bit, long through the spine. Little spiral. Breathing, letting the belly be open. And spreading your wings, coming around to the other side. Coming back through middle. Open your wings and then close your wings. Let the spine move with you. The front of the spine opening as your wings spread and the back of the spine opening as you close in. Ligaments run up the front and back of the spine, keeping the spine stable so it doesn't bend too far back nor too far forward. So ligaments are always protecting our joints from going too far in either direction. Then coming back through middle. If you're on a blanket, you could just keep that underneath you. We're going to bring our legs extended out in front of us. One stays extended out and one foot comes up beside the thigh, maybe on that side or coming over, hand or forearm wrap around that knee, thinking about the range of motion in your hip. Come forward through the sits bones, lift up through the spine, turning gradually, about 70% of what you could through the lower ribs, upper ribs, and chin. Imagining the breath swirling up the front of the spine, around that spiral. Releasing, other leg extends out, finding your twist on the other side. Forward on the sits bones, long through the spine, and that gradual turning. Breathing long, belly open. And release back through center. Now bring the both legs extended out. Arms come into cactus, coming forward an inch or two or three, and back up, shoulder blades tucking in towards each other a bit. Next time you come down, allow the hands to come down to the shins or thighs and bring a C shape to the spine. Then staying in that diagonal position, let the heart come towards the toes as you unwind. So it's kind of like a cat-cow while you're in a forward fold. Belly is strong as you close in. And as you open the front spine, the back takes a little bit more of the weight. So that you're loading your front and your back in the abdominal and low back area. And then bring it up. Spread the legs wide. And we'll come across diagonally, back of the hand coming to the pinky. Just allowing the mind to go into the parts of the body that are awakening. And maybe letting the breath awaken those parts a little bit more. Just knocking on the door, seeing what's ready to open up and feel alive. And one more side. Then coming up through center. If it's comfortable, fold one foot in towards the thigh. Walk the hands forward. Knee can be loose here on the extended leg. Pause for a moment as you come out to the front. Then walk over. Pause for a moment. Heart coming towards the knee. Inner arm comes up and over. Ah. What do you feel that you haven't felt before yet this morning? And back and forth 2 more times. And coming up through center, switch the legs. Walk the hands forward. Give the knees some grace there on the side. Stretch or see where you feel that through the lower back, perhaps. And then coming over. How does it feel? A little different as heart comes in the direction of the knee and the foot. Then opening up. Take a moment to feel that opening through the eye of the shoulder and under the armpit, and then bringing that arm over, feeling down into the hip. Just being generous with your body. One last time. And come up through center. Finding a comfortable position to sit in. Bring your palms together. Let fingertips feel each other. The balls of the hand, the mounds of the thumb, how it all fits together. Left feeling right, right feeling left. And just looking at our hands, the 4 fingers, the thumb, the palm and the knuckles, the ligaments and tendons moving in there, the fat of the thumb mound, the star of the wrist, the meander of veins, and the thick hatch of its lines. The poem reads, "A hand is not 4 fingers and a thumb, nor is it a palm and knuckles, not ligaments or the fat's yellow pillow, not tendons, star of the wrist, meander of veins. A hand is not the thick thatch of its lines with their infinite dramas, nor what it has written. Nor is the hand its meadow of holding, of shaping, not the sponge of rising yeast bread, not the rotor pin smoothness, not ink. The maple's green hands do not cup the proliferant rain. What empties itself falls into the place that is open. A hand turned upwards holds only a single transparent question, unanswerable, humming like bees. It rises, swarms, and departs." Let's come into a lying position. Wake the body up a little bit more with some sinking down. Just feel the back of the head, the shoulder blades, maybe the elbows, the hips, sinking down into the earth, the calves, the heels. Then waking up the abdomen a bit, knees bent above the hips, fingers giving some support as the legs extend out and knees come up to the chest. Slow, getting that movement into the deep inner abdomen, the pelvic floor. 2, 1. And then if you would like to bring elbow to knee, bringing the little muscles between the vertebrae into the action. For 3, 2, and 1. And bringing the head back, maybe rubbing a little bit on the back of the neck. Let's bring our legs wide. Arms also are wide. Then bring right thigh over left thigh and invite the knees in the direction of the chest into eagle legs. Then opening up once again, wide legs and arms. Left thigh comes over right thigh. Arms come wide. Bring the arm that is opposite of the top leg under the other arm and entwine them. Always a little to work out that puzzle. Then let the elbows go back and forth as if they're writing on the ceiling. Option now to let the elbows and the knees come a little far apart from each other, then lifting head and shoulders, bring them together for 4, 3, 2, and 1. And bring it down. Now we're going to bring one knee up and hug it into the chest. The leg is going to be long, extended out. So if you have your right leg up to your chest, then your left leg is out, or vice versa. Now the extended leg lifts up and comes up like the other one towards the chest and extends back. Up to the chest and extending out. Slowly, deliberately, feeling some movement perhaps in the pelvic floor. And our particular focus here is the psoas muscle that runs vertically from the top of the femur, the thigh bone. It's tendon that comes over that bone and then comes up into the psoas muscle that attaches in the lower spine, kind of the lower thoracic and upper lumbar spine. Very important in spinal and sacrum stabilization. And hug the other leg, slowly letting the opposite leg come back and forth. See if you can sense that awakening of pelvic floor and psoas. Psoas, one of them on each side, vertical muscles. At the top, their fingers go in among the vertebrae, and they essentially become the diaphragm. So they're part of that deep front line that we're discussing this morning. One more time. Bring the feet down, 4 or 5 inches below the hips. Arms are along the side. Tuck the elbows in towards the waist. The scapula are tucked in, pressing into the feet, hips rise. Hands might interlace, shoulder blades might come together just a little bit more, be wide across the clavicle. Feel some length from the knees down to the hips, hips to the shoulders, as if you have some extra length there, supported by the strong hamstrings and glutes and muscles along the spine. You might let your toes come up, enlivening the front shin muscles, the tibialis anterior, which are also part of the deep front line. So we're already involved here in the deep front line, which is now getting nice support, being cradled by the back of the body. Then bring your toes down. Let one knee come up towards the chest and then extend out. And one more time, make sure you have good support in the other foot, hip, leg, whole body. And then bring that foot down. Shift the weight over into the other side, strong through the body to enable this leg to lightly move from the chest, extending out. And bring it down, unlacing the fingers and letting the vertebrae come down. Let's take a nice long stretch. Lengthening out through the organs. Putting a little more space between the organs, the tissues, and the cells. Then bringing the feet once again below the buttocks. We're going to come into a figure 4 position, ankle on thigh, and this time lifting up that other leg and supporting it behind the thigh. Emphasis here on the piriformis muscle that also attaches around the top of the femur, the thigh bone, but it comes horizontally and connects in the center line of the sacrum. It also is an important sacrum stabilizer. And you might note that that psoas we just talked about runs vertical. The piriformis runs horizontal. So they're a balanced cross with each other, both giving important stabilization to our front deep line. And then release, and we'll come on to the other side. Let your mind's eye be deep into that feeling of the sacrum, the hip, the abdomen. And then releasing, we'll roll over and come into a tabletop position. Hands are under shoulders. Remember to keep the weight on the bottom of the forefinger and over on the pinky side of the wrist to save the carpal tunnel area. Opening up the front of the spine and the back of the spine. Not sinking too far down, not overstretching the ligaments. Both ligaments and tendons can become frayed and overstretched. So rather than going for the biggest range, the longest or the deepest range in yoga, the advice these days is to just gradually open to where the body is at ease and balanced. And if there is intensity, keeping that in places that are safe, like the belly, the waist, the heart, or even the third eye, and come back through neutral. Swivel the feet over to the right. Weight comes into the left foot, and right foot reaches out. Sorry, left foot reaches out, and left hand comes up. Just enjoying the opening through the front of the hip, the front of the body. Relaxing down through the shoulders. One more breath. Bring that hand down. Be very aware of the hand as it touches down. Swivel the feet over to the other side. How that hand gives us such good support under the shoulder. How the other one feels the air up above. Such sensitive organs, our hands. Opening up. Gaze and hand comes back down, and we'll come down into a prone position. Arms are along the side, hands in. Lift one leg a bit and stretch it back. Lift the other leg and stretch it back. Head and shoulders rise, legs rise from the pubic bone, from the hip area, and fingers reach back to the toes, crown reaching forward. The deep front line can be pretty well balanced here with just a little bit of challenge. Now bring it down, squeeze thighs, knees, ankles together. Top of the body rises up, arms are wide like a flock of geese, palms out, thumbs up. Now we're challenging the back of the body a little bit more. The deep front line, strong through the legs, and up through the lower ribs. And then our challenge as we open up. Coming back into locust. Bring everything down for a moment. And then stretching back through each leg, forward through the crown, letting the head and shoulders and legs rise. That fulcrum between the pubic bone and the lower ribs for 3, 2, and 1. Bring it down. And then once again, coming into that flock of geese with the arms spread back, thumbs up. Challenging the body with the stability of the deep front line below. And bring the hands underneath the shoulders, tuck the toes. I think you know where we're going. Up into downward dog. Nice stretch back, firm through the hands, the bottom of the forefingers, and over to the pinky side of the wrist. Long through the sides of the body, lifting up through the sits bones to spare the wrists. Paddling the feet a bit, opening up in the back of the legs. Long through the spine. Then coming forward into your version of plank. Giving good support up through the arms, through the shoulders for 3, 2, and 1. Fold the elbows in close, knees come down, little cobra, and back up into downward dog. Walk the feet forward, hands come back. Just allow yourself to hang down. Hips rise, knees are a little soft. Feel the vertebrae separating from each other all the way up through the neck. Coming over to the right slightly and hanging for a moment. Through center, over to the left. Come back through center. Hands come to the shins, coming into half fold, pushing into the shins so you can have that lovely length between the sacrum and the crown. Then bending the knees, let's come up into chair. Hips are out to the back. Inhale up and back into chair. 2 more times. Your version of chair, just go to the place that is right for the body. Then bringing the arms back, let hips come up a little bit, and arms forward, skiing down the mountain. Now bring the hands down, right foot comes up between the hands, left foot comes way back on the mat, coming into a low lunge. Be sure to kind of pull the hips, the front leg hip coming back a bit, the back leg hip coming forward a bit, so that they are horizontally aligned with each other. Thighs coming towards the hips. Then bring the hands down as you come back into downward dog. Little stretch back. And bring the other foot forward into that long, low lunge. Feeling the energy coming back from the shoulder, through the body, hip, knee, into the heel. Then bring that foot forward in the back a bit and spring forward and slowly come up into a standing position. Find the mountain within you as we come into mountain pose. Very aware of your feet on the earth. When your hands are inside your hip bones, fingers coming down to the second toes. Just rocking a bit between the roots of the toes and the center of the heel. Coming forward into the roots of the toes, exhaling back into the heels as all the weight of the body comes down. Inhaling as you come forward, rocking onto the roots of the toes. Exhaling, connecting down to the earth. Inhaling up through the roots of the toes, energy of the earth, back and forth. One more time. Then find that middle point with the anchoring in the roots of the toes and in the center to outer heel. Note how the arch becomes engaged on each side. The tibialis anterior is a muscle that comes from the inner arches and comes up the front of the shins, part of the deep front line, connects over the knee and connects up into the muscles. We're going to think about the muscles of the inner thigh, the adductors. Those muscles come up, that force line coming up through muscles, through tendons, up through the muscles of the inner thighs, some of which connect to the pubic bone, some to the top of the femur. Remember that the psoas also attaches to the top of the femur. That force of accumulated energy comes up, attaches from the inner thighs up through the psoas into the diaphragm, inner muscles of the ribs, up through the chest, myofascial tissue, into the throat. Feel the crown high, long through the navel, long through the heart. And then, as usual, that giving down, the trusting gravity and trusting of the body, the muscles, the connective tissue, the tendons and the ligaments to hold you up in a buoyant, upright position. Well, bring your attention to your sits bones and your inner thighs. First, let's just turn the inner thighs in and then let them come back to neutral. And allow the tailbone and the hips, just exploring this movement, allow the tailbone and the hips to move with the inner thighs as they rotate in a bit and come back out. So we're just exploring here. Then bring your attention to the sits bones, and we're going to squeeze them together and then let them unsqueeze. Squeezing the sitting bones together and letting them unsqueeze. Again, allow the tailbone and the hips to move back and forth with that movement. Now we're going to change it up just a little bit. Allow the hips and tailbone to remain neutral as the inner thighs rotate in slightly. Then again, allowing the hips and tailbone to remain neutral, squeeze the sitting bones together. So inner thighs rotating in a bit, sitting bones squeezing in, establishing this very firm foundation for the pelvic bowl, allowing that pelvic bowl to feel the weight of the head and the shoulders, all the organs, and then to let that weight come down through the legs, through the feet, to be held by the earth itself. Bring your hands to your heart. Lift up through that deep front line that we've just been discussing. Then we'll come into a bit of a backward bend, extending from the low pelvic bowl up through the clavicle, collarbone, and come back up. Drawing attention here to the challenge as we bring our weight and load the back of the body in the back bend, and then coming into this steady sukha, well-balanced, well-built wheel of the deep front line. Then challenging the body a bit in the back bend, and returning to that steady, stable, deep front line. One last time. Now bring the hands to the hips. The right foot comes forward and the left foot comes back as we come into a high lunge. Feel the roots of the toes, the mid heel to outer heel, the arches engaged, the engagement coming up through the fronts of the shins, the inner thighs, the sits bones coming towards each other a bit, the hips aligned. Hands come to the heart, and then push up towards the sky. Opening up, gaze upwards. And coming back, gaze to the horizon, and pushing up. Letting the whole body be part of this. When we're doing this particular movement, the deep front line can remain pretty stable. Its only challenge is the arms lifting and a curve in the neck. But we're also the challenge of the feet being apart. So we're strong through the legs and strong through the belly. Then bring the hands to the hips, bring the feet together, and bring the right foot back and left foot forward. All the toes are forward in this high lunge. Aligning the hips, drawing the thighs towards the hips. Activating that deep front line, hands to the heart, pushing up the sky or holding up the sky with your hands. Feeling that connection down to the earth, and then all the nerves of the hands connecting up to the universe. One last time. Back to center, hands on hips, bring the feet together. We're going to do a warrior one now. So right foot is forward. The left foot is perhaps at about 30 degrees. Aligning the hips, pulling in up through the inner thighs, sits bones firm. Upper belly firm. Come into peaceful warrior, shoulder blades coming together, palms open forward. Breathing up and down that front line. Arches of the feet connected to the pelvic floor connected up to the throat. Then arms arc up. Pause to reach up through the whole body, activating that deep front line through the front of the spine, up through the crown, and then giving the challenge of the back bend, weighting the back body. And come back to your well-balanced wheel. Bring the hands down around the wheel and up, extend up, and take the challenge of the back bend. And bring the hands down. Bring the feet together. Left foot is forward. Finding your warrior one, it might be narrower than mine. It might be wider, but part of our point here today is not to make it too wide. So not to challenge our ligaments and tendons into such a wide range, rather to keep the focus on this balanced, steady line up the front of the spine. Peaceful warrior, hips aligned. Feeling your steadiness through the feet, up through the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, up to the crown. Then arcing up, let the feet go down into the earth, anchor down as you lift up through the whole body, up through the front of the spine, through the neck, through the crown, Then taking the challenge, weighting the back of the body in a fair way that considers all of its ligaments that are trying hard to keep you in balance. And in the deep front line, feeling that force accumulating up through all the muscles that make up the deep front line, up through the tendons that hand the force over between muscle and muscle, up through the crown, fingertips, and take the challenge and open. And bring it up, and hands come down. Let's take a moment just to stand with one hand on chest and one hand on belly. Allowing the body to integrate and catch up a little bit. Maybe letting some energy go into parts of the body that aren't always so awake. Then we'll come into a balanced pose. So bringing the weight into the left foot, feeling the roots of the toes, center of the heel, and out to the outside of that heel, the arch, the shin muscle, the inner thighs, turning in a bit, that sits bone awake and squeezed in a bit, coming up through psoas, up through that side of the diaphragm, and the side of the neck, and then raising the other knee up. And we'll be storks. I remember a city in Spain that I was in where there were so many storks on top of the cathedral. And they would swoop in and out. Beautiful big birds. One more time. Then let's come to the other side. Feeling the roots of the toes, the heel, all of those muscles, the shin, the inner thigh, up through pelvic floor and psoas, diaphragm. And then beginning to let the other parts of your body lighten and fly. Assured that they will have a smooth ride because of the balanced wheel the body is making. One more time. Take a moment to shake out before we do tree. We're doing 2 balances today. Maybe come back to the original foot. Establish that foundation leg, the deep front line up through the leg, through the abdomen, all the way up to the jaw. And then you might bring your heel against the ankle, and that might be your tree there. Or you might have foot against the outside of the inside of the calf. Or you might come up to the thigh, thigh against foot, foot against thigh. Finding your version of tree. Having a little conversation with the floor, foot and mat, dialoguing, wobbling together, and bringing it down. And never be embarrassed if you are falling out of the balance. That shows you are trying, and the body is learning from every time you do it. Bringing the weight into the other foot, up through leg, up the front of the spine and the side of the body. Finding the place you would like to place your foot. Sides can be different. Imagining yourself a tree in the rain, in the wind, or perhaps a Christmas tree, warm and lighted. And bring it down. Let's come into a warrior two before we end our time together. Finding the width you would like for your warrior two. Kind of thinking about your hips and if they're happy, whether that back foot has to come forward a bit, whether the knees are happy. And then giving yourself for a moment to the earth through the feet. Welcoming in, almost drinking up that earth energy up through the legs, the muscles, the tendons, the muscles, bringing nourishment to the ligaments, thanking them for their stability along the way, bringing it up through the body to the heart, and then opening out. Let's flip our hands up, allowing the palms to ask their transparent question. And leave them that way or turn them down towards earth. Stretching through palms and fingers a bit. Very aware of the hands. And letting the back hand come down towards the thigh. Other hand reaches up, gazing up to the sky. This is a good place to feel the deep front line running from both of the arches up through pelvic floor, diaphragm, throat, all the way up through the fingertips. Then coming back through warrior two, bending the front arm, coming into side angle, establishing once again a strong line from the back foot, the back of the sole, the back sole of the foot, up across the lateral side of the body. But think of the insides as well, the inner thigh, the pelvic floor, the psoas on that side. Everything balancing and centering up through the body. And one more time, lifting up towards the sky. And coming back into side angle. Lifting up into warrior two. Perhaps palms turn upwards one last time. Humming with bees. And then bring the hands into the waist. Might bring the feet together for just a moment. Take a breath. And then coming to warrior two on the other side. Finding the place that is at ease, abiding in ease as we do our yoga poses. Feeling the feet, the inner thighs, the psoas, lifting up through diaphragm, up through heart. And then opening out. Perhaps palms are open, bees are swarming, lifting up from your hands. Perhaps turning palms down towards earth, working the fingers and the palms. And coming back into sky gazing warrior. Feel the whole body anchoring down and lifting up and up. And pivoting around into side angle. Long through that deep front line on one side. Knee just above ankle on the underside. And one more time, sky gazing. And reaching forward. And pivoting up back into warrior two. Opening your palms once again. And bringing the hands into the waist. Bring the feet a little pigeon-toed. Let the torso come parallel. Enjoy that stretch through hips and perhaps the backs of the legs. Pressing out through the outer soles of the feet. And then letting the hands come down. Hips rise slightly. Walk the hands over towards one side and open the outer arm. Coming back, across and over. Back through center. Walk the hands forward, coming into a wide-legged downward dog. A little softness in the knees, a rise in the hips. Enjoying that length from the heels of the hands up through arms and the sides of the body up to the hips. Breathing the front of the spine right here. And then backing your way back. Bring hands to hips, torso parallel for a second, and then bring yourself up. And toe heel the feet back together. Bring your feet just a little wider than hip width apart. Imagine that there is a big wheel in front of you, this well-balanced sukha, the well-balanced and well-built wheel of the chariot that we're going to turn around, as if we were turning the very chariot of our body. Taking joy in the balanced, stable steadiness of the body. Mind turning with the wheel. And then coming around the opposite direction. Let's do one last turn. And then fingers reach up and out and down. Come into a lying position to end our time together. Taking a moment to feel the back of the spine against the floor, against the earth. Bring the soles of the feet 4 or 5 inches below the buttocks. Wiggle the body so it's comfortable. Bring the left ankle up on the right thigh. And we're going to be relaxing through the psoas on this one as we bring the left palm against the left inner thigh. Just gently pressing there to encourage a relaxation down through the thigh into the hip. Profound softening through the psoas and the inner abdomen. Softening up through the back of the waist. The rib basket supple. Jaw soft. Eyes, all the little muscles relaxing. Then bringing that left foot down, the right ankle comes up to the left thigh. Right palm presses lightly into the right inner thigh. Relax through that right foot and calf, thigh, into hip. Profoundly letting go through the inner abdomen, the psoas. And through the diaphragm. Through that right lung. The right side of the neck. The right cheek. The right side of the nose. The forehead. The third eye. One more breath here. And then unwinding, perhaps giving your knees a hug or moving any way that the body is asking for right now. You're welcome to return to a at ease position on the floor, connecting to the earth. If you're coming back into your day, you can roll over and come up for a moment. Join our hearts at the end here. Allowing our hands to turn upwards into a single transparent question, unanswerable, humming like bees. It rises, swarms, and departs. Namaste.